It is no doubt that decision making and problem solving are integral parts of living. Every single day we make thousands of decisions, some easy and others complex and stressful, and yet they are literal forks in the road with dramatic impacts on both our personal and professional lives. Making the right decision that will impact your life positively is extremely important. And if you have ever wondered how to make better decisions and problem solve without wasting valuable time, well, wonder no more, because in this video today I'll be talking about mental models that you can use to help you make better decisions and problem solve. Mental models was a concept that was popularized by Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's investment partner and the vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway. If this is something that you're interested in, please stay tuned and let's delve right in. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Cynthia, and on this channel I talk about metaphysics, psychology, and everything in between. Before we jump into today's video, I'd like to please request you to support this channel and click on the subscribe button. That will be very helpful and highly appreciated. So let's jump right in. I think the best place to begin is by defining what a mental model is. A mental model is an explanation of how something works. It is a concept, a framework, a worldview that you carry around in your mind to help you understand the world and the relationship between things. Mental models are frameworks that help you do three things. They help you know what information to gather, how to process the information, and what decisions you come up with or that you make based off the information that you have gathered. So they help you to think, reason, and react effectively. And they also help you to uncover creative solutions to problems. So they are basically constructs that help you navigate reality by guiding your perception and behavior. And while there are thousands of mental models, in today's video I will focus on a few that, according to me, I believe are of great utility. Let's jump right into our first mental model. Mental model number 1, inversion. Have you ever felt pressure to come up with a brilliant idea and you didn't know how to begin? Well, try using inversion as a thinking tool to help relieve some of that pressure. Inversion is when you approach a problem from the opposite end of its natural starting point. This might sound like a counterintuitive approach to problem solving, but you'll be surprised at how fast you come up with ideas and solutions to your problems. For example, if you want to make a really good video, ask yourself, how can I make a really bad video? And once you have generated that list of ideas of how you can make a bad video, invert it. Coming up with a list of bad ideas is actually a fun way to get your creative juices flowing. And that list of bad ideas is surprisingly very valuable after you have inverted it. So viewing a problem from a different perspective can actually present you some really insightful ideas. The ancient Stoic philosophers were well versed with the potency of using inversion as a thinking tool. While most people are focused on how to achieve success, the ancient Stoic philosophers were focused on the opposite by considering how to manage failure. So, for example, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they all believed that by imagining the worst case scenario, they would be able to overcome their fear of negative situations or experiences and make better plans to prevent them. And they did this through an exercise called premeditatio malorum, which translates premeditation of evils. A fun application of the inversion mental model is the failure premortem or kill the company exercise in organizations. And here's how it works. Imagine the most important goal or project that you're working on. Now, fast forward 6 months down the road and assume that the project or the goal has failed. Now tell us what happened. What went wrong? What mistakes were made? The idea is that this exercise will help you identify challenges and points of failure, what went wrong, so that you are able to come up with a prevention plan ahead of time. And the benefit of this approach is actually twofold. It will highlight the mistakes that you should avoid, and once you invert, the list of what went wrong, you actually come up with very helpful insights on how to ensure that you actually achieve your goals and that your project is implemented to fruition in a successful way. So sometimes it's actually important to study why people fail in life than why they succeed. And Shane Parrish, the author of The Great Mental Models, I'm actually going to put the book here, he stated that avoiding stupidity is easier than seeking brilliance. For an even more fun application of this mental model, here is an exercise that you can try out with your partner. On the next date that you go on, come up with a list of the different ways that the both of you can sabotage the relationship. Now, this list will help, show you an indication of some of the things that your partner considers deal breakers. And once you invert that list, it will give you some helpful insights on how to keep the spark alive. You are welcome. Mental model number 2, via negativa. Most of us are conditioned to think of what we can add or create to our lives in order to make them better, and we fail to consider what we can remove. And yet there is immense power in improvement by subtraction, an idea called via negativa. This idea actually comes from a Latin phrase that was initially used in Christian theology to try and explain what God is by focusing on what he is not and proceeding with the process of elimination. Via negativa is basically the study of what not to do. Because sometimes, have you noticed, sometimes it's much easier to describe what something is not than what it is and how it can be achieved. Take, for example, what makes up a good life? It's a pretty hard question, right? But it's much easier to describe what a good life is not and what we shouldn't do in order to enjoy a good life. And paradoxically, what's bad for us is more obvious than what is good. And you can reduce your chances of failure by consistently avoiding the things that you know are not good for you. When the Pope asked the Italian sculptor Michelangelo how he managed to portray the statue of David in such great detail, he replied, "I just removed everything that is not David." So think of via negativa the same way. It is the removal of everything that is unnecessary. And here are a few ways you can apply this mental model to your daily life. So, for example, you can come up with a list of all the things that would make your life terrible and then avoid those things at all costs. And also generate a list of all the things that you are currently doing that are impeding your success and find a way of eliminating them from your life. You'll be astounded at the positive impact this has on your well-being. Mental model number 3, first principles thinking. When we are trying to achieve something, our tendency is to always look at what other people are doing in that space, and then we try to follow their approach. And most people believe that existing solutions exist for good reasons, so they don't bother questioning them. The problem with this is that if these existing solutions contain incorrect assumptions and they are inherited by default, this could pose really grave consequences. And that is why first principles thinkers don't take existing solutions at their face value. They drill down in order to try and understand their fundamental truths. So first principles are the core elements that make up an idea, a solution, a way of life, and that everything else is built on those core elements. And this mental model is a thinking tool that clarifies complex and complicated problems by reverse engineering and splitting them apart in order to understand their core elements and separate them from the assumptions. When you use this mental model, it puts you in the driver's seat of your own life, and you are able to come up actually with unique solutions to the problems that you face once you understand core elements. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the person that popularized this mental model, Elon Musk. The story of how SpaceX came to be is a great illustration of this thinking model in action. Here's how the story goes. So Elon Musk wanted to purchase a rocket, and he was told that each rocket would cost him about $65 million US. This being an astronomical price, of course he had to come up with a different approach. So he asked himself, what is a rocket made of? Aerospace grade aluminium alloys, titanium, copper, carbon fiber. And so he inquired about the price of these materials on the commodity market, and then he discovered that these materials cost about 2% of the typical price on the commodity market. So he then came up with a revolutionary idea, and he said to himself that, wait, I can buy these materials, hire smart engineers, and build rockets myself. And that is how SpaceX came to be. The lesson we learn or that we derive from this story is that once you understand the core elements of something, the first principles of something, you can build your knowledge around that and be able to come up with something new or produce something new. I know that it can be extremely exhausting to solve every problem using first principles thinking, and it might be typically okay to go with an existing solution. However, when you are faced with a highly consequential problem or challenge, for example, which career to choose or which business to start, don't just simply follow what other people are doing. Instead, put on your first principles cap and start to drill down to the fundamental truths of these ideas. And once you have sieved out the truths, the core principles and the core elements from the assumptions, you'll be able to understand which direction actually works for you, and you will know what to do. An idea that blooms from true and beautiful principles is itself true and beautiful. So don't just blindly follow existing solutions and ways of living that you don't fully understand and may be filled with dogmas and assumptions. Instead, get back in touch with your innate curiosity and desire to question things, and start asking why, so you can be able to drill down to the fundamental truths of things, so that you are able to select a solution, an idea, a way of life that is better aligned with your true essence. Remember that a first principles thinker has a nuanced understanding of things. So always question things and try to understand their core elements, their fundamental truths, because once you understand those core elements and fundamental truths, you are able to make better decisions, because you know what works for you and what doesn't, and you're not just blindly following what someone has told you to do. One of the skills that you can develop in today's information overload world is the ability to tell the difference between first principles and assumptions. Mental model number 4, second order thinking. Have you heard of the Cobra effect? The story of how this effect came to be is perhaps the most interesting illustration of the importance of second order thinking. During the British rule of colonial India, the British government was facing a venomous cobra snake infestation problem in Delhi, and so the government came up with an ingenious plan to offer a bounty for every dead cobra, or so they thought. The initial effects of this incentive strategy were actually successful, and many rewards were claimed, and the number of cobras in Delhi started to decrease. However, the number of dead cobras that were presented to the bounty office suspiciously started to increase. It turns out that some Delhi people with an enterprising spirit had actually started breeding cobras in order to get the bounty. But when the government learned of this scheme, they stopped offering the bounty. And when they did that, all hell broke loose. The breeders released the cobras into the streets of Delhi, and the infestation problem became worse. This story shows that sometimes the apparent solution to a problem can actually make the situation even worse. It is no surprise that we often make bad decisions in our day-to-day lives and work, because we fail to consider the potential consequences of our decisions. This is mainly due to our tendency to think linearly, because it feels like the most intuitive way to solve a problem, right? But as you have seen, it's often not the right way, because failing to take a step back to see the big picture can pose really grave consequences. The idea is that instead of stopping at the thought of the first consequence of an action, you actually go further and dig deeper to think about what are the subsequent consequences of an action. And second order thinking is a great tool that you can use, particularly when you're unsure of what action to take and its potential consequences. And using this mental model can actually, protect you from disastrous, unintended consequences of second order effects. So it is imperative that you incorporate second order thinking into your decision-making process. To put this mental model or thinking tool in effect, always ask yourself, and then what? After you have made a decision, always ask yourself, and then what? you will discover the consequences of that decision. And once you discover those consequences, ask yourself, and then what? What happens after that? Using this approach will help you to consider the short-term, medium-term, and long-term consequences of your actions. And it will help you consider your decisions from different perspectives, which actually puts you in a much better position to be able to make well-informed and well-thought-out decisions. Using this mental model can take a little more time, but it's well worth it. And here is a quote from Ray Dalio, the author of Principles. I'm going to put the book here, that throws light on the importance of second-order thinking. Failing to consider second and third order consequences is the cause of a lot of painfully bad decisions, and it is especially deadly when the first inferior option confirms your own biases. Never seize on the first available option, no matter how good it seems, before you have asked questions and explored. Mental model number 5. The map is not the territory. Do you know what made the scientific revolution such a big deal? Well, prominent religions at the time claimed that everything important to know about the world was already known, and that it could be revealed by priests or scriptures. However, the scientific revolution challenged that consensus, and they reintroduced the idea that we do not know everything and that we should be willing to admit ignorance. The map is not the territory is a mental model that metaphorically illustrates the difference between belief and reality. In other words, that our maps may not fully reflect the territory. The idea is that the way we see the world isn't really reality itself. Our minds create reality maps, ideas, beliefs, and shortcuts to try and understand it. This is because the only way we can process the complexity of reality is through abstraction. So we create generalizations and beliefs and then delete or distort our observations to keep them in line with our generalizations. With this incomplete and distorted observation, we create an internal representation of the world which at times is very different from reality. Our tendency to try and simplify reality by creating reality maps that help us in thinking and decision making is actually understandable, but we need to keep in mind the limitations of maps. For example, when you look at a map, you are not getting the perfect representation of the territory. You're actually being given a holistic overview of what to expect once you go to that area. And this is an important fact to keep in mind, because when you mistake the map for reality, you start to think that you have all the answers. But using this mental model or this thinking tool, helps you to stay open to the possibility that you might be wrong or that you might have missed something, which in turn helps you to become more curious, more flexible, allowing you to become more open-minded. And perhaps the best application for this mental model is when you have to make a highly consequential and important decision, and when you have been, just presented generalized information, and you have to make a really important decision off that generalized information. But when you have this mental model in mind and you know how to use it, you will know that, wait, I have to dig deeper, because the map is not the territory. This is just a representation of what to expect. So what am I missing? You have to be open to the possibility. You must be open to the possibility that there's something that you have missed or that you could be wrong. So for example, a dating profile is not the person. Okay? The company financial statements do not give a full representation of the stake of the company. And CVs are not the employees. So if you find yourself in a situation where you have to make a decision, but based off generalized information, allow yourself to dig deeper and take the time, to find out more information that will allow you make a well-informed decision. Always remember, the map is not the territory. Also remember that even the best maps are still imperfect, because in the reduction, you lose certain information which may be vital to your decision-making process. Also, another limitation of using maps is that they require interpretation. And interpretation is greatly influenced by cognitive biases. So you need to always remind yourself to treat a map, as a point of reference and not your only data source. Being less dependent on maps will strengthen your ability to use sound judgment. You know, the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates was named the wisest philosopher because he claimed, I only know that I know nothing. Mental model number 6, Occam's razor. Has a situation ever occurred in your life that left you wondering about its potential causes? Well, the next time such a situation occurs, instead of coming up with conspiracy theories of what might have caused it, try using Occam's razor to help point you to a likely cause. This mental model suggests that when you have a simple and complex explanation of the same phenomenon, the simplest explanation that requires the fewest assumptions is likely to be the correct one. This mental model does not prove or disapprove, it just simply leads you down the path that's most likely to be correct. For example, if you have failed an important exam and you'd like to know why, there are two explanations. One, you just didn't study hard enough. Two, your teacher sabotaged your grade. So, like most conspiracy theories, the second explanation only works with a lot of assumptions. You must assume that your teacher dislikes you enough and not your other classmates that he would risk his job to give you a poor grade. So, the first explanation being the simpler one, and it has less assumptions, is most likely the correct one. A second example is that say you're trying to reach your partner in the middle of the day and their phone is off. Possible explanations for this could be, one, his phone was stolen or its battery died, or two, they are cheating on you and they are currently with the other person. Like most conspiracy theories, the second explanation only works with a lot of assumptions. You must assume that your partner has been cheating on you for quite a while, and that they are willing to risk their marriage with infidelity. So if you do not have reasons, that explain the second explanation or that support the second explanation, the first explanation is therefore the correct one because, it's simpler and, requires less assumptions. And that is how Occam's razor works. So by reducing the number of unsupported assumptions in an explanation, you reduce the likelihood of being wrong. And you need to be okay with simple explanations because most often than not, they're going to be the correct ones. And this will save you a lot of time and energy. Finally, our last mental model number 7, Hanlon's razor. Have you ever made the mistake of getting angry at someone thinking that they had malicious intent behind their actions, yet in fact they were just careless or incompetent? This mental model helps you to think rationally about the actions of other people. It states that never attribute to malice that which can be explained by carelessness, stupidity, incompetence, or neglect. This mental model makes you consciously aware of situations that may at first glance appear to be intentionally harmful or even malicious. And it helps you to rationally judge them before you arrive at premature conclusions and react. So much of life stress can be avoided by understanding this mental model because it reminds you that people make mistakes. And it also demands that you ask if there is another reasonable explanation for someone's behavior. So instead of getting angry, learn to give people the benefit of the doubt. Occam's and Hanlon's razors are not much of decision-making tools. They are ways to help you check your biases, which is vital to the decision-making process. In conclusion, mental models maximize your possibility of making better decisions because they allow you to see problems through different lenses and frameworks. And like Charlie Munger said, you must have a lattice work of mental models and approach problems by essentially running them through a checklist of your main mental models to get a thorough understanding of the issue at hand. And since mental models paint a picture of how the world works, you need to always upgrade and improve this picture by learning more about mental models. And this is not something that you do once and be done with. You have to build a lattice work of mental models continually. So therefore, you have to read widely from the best books and learn from people with different experiences, and learn about the different mental models that they use to think and make decisions. Because remember, better mental models equals better decisions equals better results. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comment section what you thought about it and some of the different mental models that you use in your day-to-day life, to problem solve and make decisions. I'll be very interested to know. Please remember to support this channel by clicking on the subscribe button. Thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in my next Bye.